Why don't you at least wear a suit, you poor guy? Don't tell me you don't have one. Jason laughed loudly as he said this to me. Our classmates, who had been reminiscing with us, looked surprised. I do have a suit, I retorted, irritated by Jason's words. I couldn't understand why I had to be annoyed in this pleasant place. Jason had always looked down on me. It was time to make him understand. I made a decision. My name is Mark, and I'm 30 years old. When I was a child, I moved frequently because of my dad's job. When I was in the 6th grade, my dad got another transfer, and we moved to a rural area. Sorry for another transfer, but this should be the last one, my dad told me happily. Though transferring schools was always tough for me, who was shy and introverted, I remember feeling relieved that it would be the last time. The middle school I transferred to was much smaller than my previous one, but my classmates were kind, and I was excited about my new life. However, there was one person who didn't think well of me. That was Jason. Hey, nerd. Stop studying all the time. Jason would always pick on me. I was just copying notes. Shut up. Don't talk back, especially since you don't even have a mom. Jason yelled at me. My mom had passed away when I was young due to illness. I, too, wanted to see and talk to my mom if I could. But that was impossible. Hey, Jason. Don't say that. When I looked sad, my classmates often stood up for me. That didn't sit well with Jason, and his bullying continued until we graduated middle school. If I got good grades on a test, he would cause a scene, saying, "You probably cheated, didn't you?" And when I got a good time in track and field, he would shout, "You false started, do it again," causing trouble for everyone around. Jason just really disliked me. I spent my middle school years avoiding him. A turning point came when it was time to choose high schools. I heard rumors that Jason was going to a prestigious school out of state, so I decided to apply to a nearby high school. Finally, I would be free from Jason. That's all I could think about. As planned, Jason and I went to different high schools, and I didn't have to deal with him anymore. I felt an indescribable sense of happiness. I made new friends and enjoyed high school life. I joined the track team and spent my afternoons training with my teammates. My high school life was a stark contrast to my middle school one, filled with joy and fulfillment. After a happy high school life, I graduated and got a job at a sewing factory. Although I wanted to go to college, I didn't want to burden my dad, who had raised me alone. My dad encouraged me to go to college, but I declined and started working at the factory. I got a job at a sewing factory for an apparel company. I wasn't particularly interested in clothing, but it was the only company that would hire a high school graduate like me. Before working there, I had never touched a sewing machine or known anything about making clothes. But my supervisors and colleagues patiently taught me everything. 5 years after joining, I finally mastered all the tasks in the factory. "Mark, I'm struggling with this part. I'll handle this. It should be done this way." "I see. You've really improved lately, Mark." "I can't slack off," Emily said with a smile. Despite having no particular talents, I became knowledgeable about sewing. My colleagues came to rely on me. Until that day, I had been living a fulfilling life. But then, one day, something happened. I went to work at the factory as usual and started planning today's tasks with Emily. Suddenly, there was a commotion at the factory entrance. "Is there something special happening today?" Curious, I asked Emily. Emily looked puzzled too. "Mr. Smith mentioned we have an important deal today." I glanced towards the factory entrance. And there he was. The last person I wanted to see, Jason, was standing there. I rubbed my eyes and looked again, but there was no mistake, it was Jason. Why is he here? I kept my head down and focused on my work, avoiding eye contact. "Thank you for coming all this way. It's a crucial deal, so it's only natural." Mr. Smith shows modesty toward Jason. Then, I noticed that Jason's voice, while talking to Mr. Smith, was gradually getting closer to me. When I looked up, Jason was right in front of me, smiling. He had found me. I had a bad feeling. "So, you're working here? I heard you started working right after high school, but at a factory? That's hilarious." I ignored Jason's words and continued working. Mr. Smith, surprised, spoke to Jason. You know each other? Mark is a hardworking and valuable member of our team. Jason laughed loudly again. You say this guy is valuable? In middle school, he was a total failure and always caused trouble for everyone. Unbelievable. Mr. Smith's expression hardened. Emily, working beside me, looked at Jason with a puzzled expression. A failure. Yes, it's true. Right, Mark? Jason suddenly directed his words at me. Annoyed, I said, I don't remember causing trouble for anyone. Stop spreading lies. Jason's expression turned slightly angry. I'm not lying. You've always been a failure. How dare you talk back to me? I was at a loss for words. Then, Jason said something shocking. Mr. Smith, if you want to do business with my company, fire him. With him around, your company won't succeed. He's a curse. The factory fell silent. My colleagues stared at Jason in disbelief. Mr. Smith took a deep breath and then said, Let's discuss this over some coffee, and led Jason to the office. I couldn't understand why Jason thought he had the authority to get me fired. He had always tried to control everything his way. As I sighed, Emily looked at me with concern. Don't let what he says bother you. He's really an awful person, she said gently while continuing her work. He's always hated me. I guess he just wants to mess with me again. For the past 5 years, I had worked tirelessly at this factory, and Mr. Smith knew it. Even though Jason, the client representative, wanted me fired, I was confident that Mr. Smith wouldn't let me go. But that confidence was quickly shattered. That evening, Mr. Smith called me into his office. I had never been called in before, so I entered the office with curiosity. Mr. Smith looked a bit down. Then he spoke heavily. Mark. I'm sorry, but could you take some time off until the deal with TA Corp is finalized? What? I couldn't believe my ears. I never expected Mr. Smith to say something like this. He continued. You know how important the contract with TA Corp is for this company, right? TA Corp was a famous apparel company known throughout the industry. I remembered Emily mentioning that this deal involved millions of dollars. Yes. Jason seems to have a grudge against you. If we lose the contract because of that, it would be a huge loss for the company. But I don't want to fire you, so could you please take a break until the deal is done? I want to make it seem like you've been fired. I could only nod at Mr. Smith's desperate plea. I couldn't understand why I had to take a break despite not doing anything wrong. But for Mr. Smith and the company's sake, I had to comply. For the next week, I stayed home. I couldn't focus on anything. I had asked Emily to cover my tasks, but I worried if she'd be okay. Then, I got a call from Emily. She had a task she couldn't figure out. I tried to explain it over the phone, but it wasn't working, so I reluctantly headed to the factory. I sneaked into the factory and approached Emily. Mark. I'm so sorry to bother you during your break, Emily said apologetically in a small voice. I discreetly showed her how to complete the task, avoiding the other colleagues. Emily understood and thanked me. As I was about to leave without being noticed, an incident occurred. At the entrance was Jason. Jason looked surprised. Then he shouted, What are you doing here? Weren't you fired? Damn. I instinctively stepped back. Hearing my voice, Mr. Smith came out of the office. He looked troubled. Mark. I just came to pick up something I forgot. I quickly lied to Jason. Jason snorted and said, See? Everyone is annoyed by you. There's no place that will hire a high school graduate like you. Now get out of here. Mr. Smith just stood there silently, watching. What had I ever done to Jason? I was fed up with him. Something snapped inside me. Jason, why do you always target me? I've never done anything to you. I couldn't hold it in any longer and shouted. My coworkers looked at me with concern. Emily, in particular, looked like she was about to run over, her face full of worry. Jason, however, was completely unfazed by my words and said, I hate you because you've never put in any effort. Do you have any idea how hard I worked to get where I am? Meanwhile, you just drifted along with an easy job after high school. You think I haven't put in any effort? Give me a break. Do you know how hard I've worked at this factory? Jason laughed. Anyone can work in a factory. No matter how hard I tried to talk to Jason, it never got through to him. I realized that at that moment. Talking to him was a waste of time. I ran out of there. Even as I left, Jason kept laughing at me. As I ran, I made a decision. A few days later, I called Mr. Smith and told him I was quitting. I couldn't let the company suffer because of me. Mr. Smith desperately tried to convince me to stay, but my mind was made up. I started looking for a new job, but it was tough and frustrating not finding anything right away. My dad encouraged me, saying, "You've worked hard until now, so why not take a break? Life is long. It won't hurt to rest a bit." Inspired by my dad's words, I took a year to do what I wanted. I had saved more than average from my 5 years of hard work. I decided to take my time finding a new job. When I finally found a new job, everything fell into place smoothly. I started working hard again. 6 years passed, and I turned 30. Life was good, and work was going well. One day, I arranged to meet up with Robert, an old middle school friend, at a cafe. Robert was my best friend in middle school. Since we also went to the same high school, we were as close as brothers, and even after graduation, we would occasionally meet up to catch up. He now worked for an international company and traveled around the world. I was thrilled when Robert reached out to meet. "Hey! Long time no see." Robert greeted me cheerfully. "It's been 2 years since we last met before your overseas assignment." Catching up with Robert was nostalgic, and we had a great time talking. "Hey, why aren't you coming to the reunion?" Robert suddenly asked. I couldn't understand what Robert was talking about. Reunion? A month ago, there was an invitation sent out. Jason and I were the organizers, and Jason said you weren't coming. This was news to me. I never received any invitation. It had to be Jason deliberately leaving me out. I never got an invitation. Jason probably didn't send it on purpose. He doesn't want me there. Robert looked shocked. Really? I thought you just didn't want to attend. That's awful of Jason. Robert angrily sipped his coffee. Jason's always been a jerk. Actually, I told Robert everything that happened 6 years ago. He looked at me, incredulous. I can't believe that happened. I'm at a loss for words. Yeah, that's true. But thanks to him, I am who I am today. So, I've let go of the past. Jason was indeed a jerk, but because of him, I became stronger. If it weren't for Jason, I might have remained insecure and untalented. After 6 years, I began to see it that way. So, what about the reunion? Jason will be there, will you skip on it? Robert asked, concerned about me. I laughed and said to Robert, since it's a good opportunity, I'll join you. Robert nodded happily. Honestly, I was a bit scared to see Jason again. He'd probably just make snide comments. But I wasn't the same person I was 6 years ago. I decided to attend the reunion with confidence. I promised to meet Robert at the reunion and then we parted ways. I was really grateful to Robert. If I hadn't met Robert today, I wouldn't have known about the reunion. Thinking about seeing old classmates again, I went home. On the day of the reunion, I wore a new shirt. Seeing me, my dad commented, "You're not wearing a suit. The reunion's at a 5-star hotel, right?" He looked worried. It was natural for my dad to be worried. Since the venue was a 5-star hotel, I needed to dress appropriately. But I didn't want to wear a suit on my day off. So, I chose a shirt that was casual but still suitable for the hotel. I'm going like this. Don't worry. Dad still looked concerned. But Jason will be there, right? Won't he say something nasty again? I had told my dad everything that happened 6 years ago. He still held a grudge against Jason. I reassured him, even if he does, I won't let it bother me. Dad seemed reassured and said no more. I left home, looking forward to seeing my old classmates. My steps were light. When I entered the hotel, I was greeted by a grand chandelier and a luxurious atmosphere. Excitedly, I headed to the hotel restaurant. "Mark! Thanks for coming." Robert ran up to me, looking delighted. "Hey! I'm excited today." I smile along with Robert. We entered the restaurant together. The restaurant was reserved for the reunion, with a lavish spread of food. Even before the reunion officially started, many familiar faces were already catching up and having fun. Seeing me, some classmates came over, excited. "Mark! It's been since middle school, right? So good to see you." They chatted happily. We reminisced about funny and silly middle school stories. Before I knew it, the reunion had begun and more classmates arrived. "By the way, isn't Jason amazing?" A classmate suddenly brought up Jason. "What's amazing about him?" I asked. As I listened with interest, my classmate began speaking quickly. "He's apparently the sales manager at TA Corp." "TA Corp, that huge company?" "Jason has always been smart, the top achiever. And he's also advancing deals with that major apparel manufacturer." "I see. Jason became a manager shortly after I left my previous job." Well, it didn't really matter to me. As I was thinking this, the restaurant entrance grew even more lively. Speak of the devil. At the entrance stood Jason. He was wearing an impressive suit. I instinctively looked away. Jason didn't know I was attending this reunion. In fact, he had intended not to invite me. If he found out I was here, he'd probably lose it. I looked at Robert. Robert whispered, "You've done nothing wrong, Mark. Just hold your head high." Thanks to Robert's words, I felt a bit more at ease. There was no need to cater to Jason at all. "Thanks, Robert," I said, continuing to talk with him. Soon, Jason spotted me, looking at me as if he had seen a ghost. He never expected me to be here. He shouted loudly, "Why are you here? You weren't invited." Jason was red-faced with anger. "Robert invited me. I have every right to attend our middle school reunion, don't I?" Jason immediately responded. "I don't consider you a classmate. You're being audacious by coming here without my permission." His words caused a stir among our classmates. "You don't belong here." Good grief! How much more would he insult me before he was satisfied? I was exhausted. "So, if I leave, will that make you happy?" Jason snorted. "Yeah, that's right. Get out of here. And that outfit is way too casual for this venue." I had talked to a few classmates, so I decided to leave as Jason suggested. Then Jason added another snide remark. "At least wear a suit, you poor guy. Don't tell me you don't own one?" I was speechless. What on earth was he talking about? I do have a suit. I just didn't want to wear one on my day off. Jason laughed even harder at my words. I couldn't understand what he found so funny. "Stop pretending. You couldn't afford a suit, could you? Admit it, you're poor." I was stunned by his harsh words. There was nothing more to say. I turned to leave. Then, Jason said something unforgivable. "Hey! Want my old suit? It's so expensive you'd never be able to afford it even if you worked your whole life." I was inwardly furious but kept my cool and continued listening. "If you want a suit like mine, get a job at a famous company like I did. But you're too incompetent for that." I reached my breaking point. Why did I have to put up with this? But just as I was about to shout, Robert raised his voice. "He doesn't need your hand-me-down suit." I was surprised. Robert had always been gentle, and I had never seen him yell. Yet here he was, standing up for me. I nearly dropped my drink in surprise. Jason glared at Robert, equally surprised. "Hand me down? This suit is from KG Industries, the company my firm is about to do business with. There's no way someone like Mark could get a suit like this. Jason, I'm afraid I have to cancel that deal." For a moment, the room fell silent. What? It seemed like Jason didn't hear what I said. "So be it." I repeated myself. "I'm asking you to cancel the deal between your company and mine." The room was dead quiet. What are you talking about? My company doesn't do business with you. Do you really not recognize me? You don't know anything, do you? I asked, but Jason just laughed. What are you implying? You're just incompetent, Mark, nothing more. I took out my business card and handed it to Jason, who couldn't understand anything I said. Sorry for the late introduction. I'm Mark Davis, president of KG Industries. I've decided to cancel the collaboration between our companies. What? President of KG Industries. Jason turned pale. Robert laughed and said, "See? That's why Mark doesn't need your suit. He's got plenty of his own." As I said, I am the president of KG Industries, a major suit manufacturer. The incident 6 years ago had set me on this path. After quitting my job, I struggled to find new work. But fortunately, I had savings, so I decided to take it easy and made a suit for my dad. My dad wore suits to work every day, and I wanted to create a stylish suit for him. When I gave it to him, he was thrilled, and I felt proud. My dad wore the suit I made for him to work the next day. When he came home that evening, he asked if I could make 2 more. Apparently, his colleagues loved it and wanted one too. Of course, I made suits for my dad's colleagues as well. The next day, someone else asked for one. This kept happening, and more people wanted suits made by me. Within a month, I had dozens of orders. I was amazed at how popular my suits had become. Seeing this, my dad suggested, "Why don't you start a company? With my own factory, I would surely be able to meet the demand faster." I decided to establish a company. It required a lot of money, and I took on debt, but people kept wanting my unique, stylish suits, and the business quickly grew. In just 6 years, my company went public and became a well-known suit manufacturer. One day, Mr. Harris, the president of TA Corp., contacted me directly. He said he definitely wanted to collaborate on a product with my company. Collaborating with a major apparel company like TA Corp. Would greatly increase my company's visibility. Mr. Harris, the president of TA Corp., was very enthusiastic and even said that he wouldn't spare any expense for the collaboration. Though the past troubles with Jason, a TA Corp employee, crossed my mind, I decided to focus on the company's future and went ahead with the deal. However, knowing that Jason was with TA Corp., I started thinking that continuing this deal wasn't an option. I never wanted to deal with such a rude person again. When Jason found out I was the president of KG Industries, he began to sweat and apologize profusely. "I didn't know you were the president. Please forgive me." I ignored him and started to leave the venue. Jason followed me and stood in front of me. "Come on, I'm sorry. It's my fault." It was too late for apologies. I sighed. "It's too late. I won't forgive you." Jason then shouted. "We're friends, right? How can you be so heartless? If Mr. Harris finds out this deal was canceled because of me, I'll get fired. Can you live with that?" Jason still acted arrogantly. I took out my phone and made a call. Jason watched me, puzzled. "Hello? I'm sorry, but I have to cancel our deal." "What? What's going on?" "Your employee, Jason, has been too disrespectful. I can't proceed with the contract." The person I called was Mr. Harris of TA Corporation. When Jason realized this, he panicked and collapsed to his knees. "I'll remove Jason from the project. Can't you reconsider, please?" "No, I have already made a decision." I hung up the phone. Jason, realizing it was pointless, sat there silently. I leaned down and looked at him. "I have one last question." Jason stayed silent. But I continued speaking. There was something I had to know. "Why have you always looked down on me? I never did anything to you. Didn't you realize how cruel you were?" When I glared at him, he quietly replied, "I was jealous of how you seemed to succeed so effortlessly. No one but the person themselves knows how much effort they've put in. The fact that you treated me so horribly because of that is terrible. Reflect on how much you've hurt me." With that, Robert and I left the venue. Apparently, Jason continued to cry pathetically. We walked out, feeling relieved. I finally said what I had wanted to say to Jason for so long. "Thanks, Robert. I was grateful to him for being there. He smiled awkwardly and said, "We're friends. It's only natural to help each other out." Later, Mr. Harris and Jason came to apologize to my company. I apologize for Jason's behavior. I will transfer him to a regional office and make sure he fully reflects on his actions. Please forgive us. Mr. Harris deeply apologized to me. Beside him, Jason also apologized. "I'm sorry. I'll reflect on my actions and never behave like that again." I sighed and looked at Emily, my secretary. She whispered, "They seem genuinely sorry. Maybe you should forgive them this time?" Seeing this, Jason was astonished. "You're from back then?" "Yes, when I established my company, I brought Emily on board. Having her around was reassuring, and I wanted to work with her. Moreover, Emily and I had gotten married and were now husband and wife." "It's nice to meet you," Emily said, shaking hands with them politely. After that, Mr. Harris and I continued our discussion and decided to proceed with the deal. Jason, as Mr. Harris promised, was transferred to a regional office and never appeared before me again. I heard that in his new position, he had a complete change of his mind and dedicated himself to his work. I hoped he would continue living without causing trouble for others. The brand that my company and TA Corp co-developed became a massive hit, creating a huge sensation. All the products became million sellers, generating billions in profit for my company. I couldn't be more grateful to Emily, knowing that none of this success would have been possible without her words. From now on, I will continue to make this company even better and ensure her happiness.
I work for a major travel agency, and I'm 28 years old. My name is James. My wife, Lisa, is the same age as me. We met during our student years, started dating, and got married after we began our careers. Even after marriage, we decided to continue working until we had children, so Lisa kept her job at the bank, where she worked before we got married. After finishing my usual customer service tasks, I was doing some paperwork when a new customer walked in. Instinctively, I greeted them and headed towards the entrance, only to find Lisa, who was supposed to be at work, and a man I didn't recognize standing beside her. The two of them were cozily nestled together, like a couple. Come on, this can't be happening. I had always believed that infidelity was something that would never touch my family. But that belief was my mistake. We had been married for 3 years. We had been trying for a baby since right after we got married, but had not been successful. Work got busy, I got a promotion, and our time together dwindled. I would often come home late, help out at other stores, or work on weekend, and our opportunities for quality time together became rare. I started to fall asleep from exhaustion more often, and naturally, trying for a baby became a lower priority. Lisa had always talked about wanting children, and I felt guilty about it. So, I decided to have a serious conversation with her after dinner. "Hey, there's something I want to talk about. It's about having kids." "What's up?" "You've always said you wanted kids, but I've been so busy lately. I want to be more supportive, but with the promotion and the busy season coming up." "I see, it can't be helped. You're doing great at work." "Yeah, sorry about that." "It's okay, it's not your fault." I had gathered my courage to discuss this, but that was the end of the conversation for Lisa. I was happy that she seemed to understand my busy schedule, but in hindsight, her response was too casual for someone who had always wanted children. I should have realized something was off then. Lisa had always been meticulous about her appearance because of her job at the bank, but even I, who couldn't tell the difference between makeup trends, noticed that her style, hair, and overall vibe had changed. She seemed to have become more polished and attractive. I once commented, "You've been dressing up a lot lately, what's up?" "Is that bad? A beautiful wife makes you happier, right?" she replied. Honestly, Lisa was beautiful, and thinking of her as my wife made me even happier. I convinced myself that she was doing all this for me and fell for her even more. But now, I realized that her sudden change was too drastic. after the peak season, when the foot traffic at the agency settled down. I managed to leave work a bit earlier than usual. Lisa usually finished work before me and rarely worked overtime, so she was typically home before me. However, one day, I came home to find the lights off. Lisa wasn't home yet. I thought it was unusual but didn't think much of it. However, this started happening more frequently, and Lisa's return time got later and later. When I texted her, she often took a while to reply. Worried, I asked, "You've been coming home late recently. Did something change at work?" She sighed and said, "Well, it's not exactly a transfer, but my workload has increased. I've been doing nothing but overtime lately. It's getting to me." I knew I wouldn't understand the details of her work, and there might be things she couldn't share. I had been neglecting our efforts to conceive, and since I usually came home later, Lisa had been taking care of most of the household chores and meals. I wondered if I had been putting too much strain on her. Thinking it was time for me to support her, I made up my mind. For my beloved wife. "It's tough, huh? I'll do what I can, so let's work through this together." "Really, it's been hard lately, so that would be a big help. Thank you." From that day, I took on more household responsibilities and started cooking dinner whenever I got home early. I learned from the internet and cut books. And although cooking for someone else was new and challenging for me, I found it enjoyable. It felt like a way to make up for neglecting our efforts to conceive and to give back to Lisa. I even managed to become more efficient with our grocery shopping, though I wouldn't say I reached the level of being frugal. Around this time, our schedules aligned even less, and our intimate life became almost non-existent. Lisa started going out more on weekends, often not returning until late, with various excuses. Gradually, I found myself taking on more of the household duties, including cooking, cleaning, and laundry. But seeing Lisa heading out to gatherings, saying I wanted to get promoted and needed to network, I couldn't bring myself to say anything, considering I had also burdened her with my own ambitions for promotion. Not being familiar with the banking industry, I assumed such networking was crucial, and given her superior performance, I thought it best to let her do as she pleased. A while later, when I ran into one of Lisa's colleagues at the supermarket after work, the conversation took an unexpected turn. Although we weren't close, I knew the colleague from previous outings with Lisa. Good evening. You're Lisa's husband, right?" "Good evening. Yes, I am. Long time no see. I'm glad I didn't mistake you for someone else." As we made small talk, her colleague mentioned something that caught me off guard. "It's really nice that both of you are into cooking." "Pardon?" I asked, surprised. The colleague looked puzzled. "Lisa has been really into cooking lately. It's amazing how she's beautiful, good at her job, and even cooks special dishes for her husband. She even left work on time today to cook." "Today as well?" "Yes, isn't it? Are you out getting some missing ingredients?" he asked with a smile. I was momentarily speechless, confused by the mismatch between what was being said and what I knew. My basket was full of groceries, making it hard to come up with an excuse. "Today, I'm cooking one dish, and, I'm also stocking up for when I cook next. Haha," I managed to say. Still puzzled, I hurried home, half expecting Lisa to be there. But she didn't return until late, as usual. "Sorry for being late again. I had something at the convenience store, so I'll eat what you made tomorrow," she said, putting the side dishes I had left out into the fridge. The fridge was mostly stocked with groceries I had bought. I hadn't seen Lisa cooking for a while now. This is when I began to suspect infidelity. Though I started to doubt Lisa, I wasn't sure what to do at first. Wanting concrete evidence, I eventually decided to hire a detective to investigate her for possible infidelity. Setting the investigation period for 1 month. Unable to take time off work and with our dates becoming a rarity, I spared no expense, hoping for a clear resolution. While I had a detective working on the case outside, I decided to do some investigating of my own at home, albeit with a sense of guilt. I wondered what I'd do if I found photos or something incriminating, but no new discoveries came to light. I searched in places where things might be hidden, even reaching into the back of the dresser, but found nothing. Maybe it's just my misunderstanding, and she's really just busy with work. While meticulously searching everywhere, I found something unfamiliar at the bottom of the bedroom trash can. It was a strip of pills. I didn't recognize the shape of the strip, but upon searching the name of the medication written on it, I discovered it was a contraceptive pill. While not definitive proof of infidelity, it was puzzling why she would use such a thing when we were trying to have a child. It seemed unlikely that a guest would dispose of contraceptive pills in our bedroom trash can. It had to be hers. Though our intimate moments were rare, they existed, partly in hopes of conceiving. Finding the pills, I was almost certain of her betrayal. A month later, I visited the detective agency in person to receive the investigation report, preferring this to potentially risky postal delivery. The findings confirmed my suspicions. The investigator provided a detailed chronological explanation. I had decided on the scope of the investigation myself, but I was somewhat carried away by the suspicion of infidelity, so I was surprised at how thoroughly they had conducted the investigation. It seemed the other party was a senior colleague from her workplace, but I was astounded by how they hadn't noticed being followed, having their conversations recorded, and being clearly photographed. It's unfortunate, but I found it ironic when told this. On the night she didn't return until late, she was either dining with this man or visiting his place. Well, it was mostly hotels, actually. At this point, I couldn't help but laugh. I also felt a self-loathing for not having noticed it all along. But given the circumstances, I couldn't stay with her anymore, nor did I want to. I decided to hire a competent lawyer and start preparing for a divorce. Fitting this in between work without arousing suspicion was challenging, but having solid evidence sped up the preparation process more than I expected. Then came the fateful day. Lisa mentioned she'd be leaving home earlier than usual. "I'm going on a business trip to a branch a bit far away," she said, without me asking. I smiled and wished her a safe trip. That day, I was also heading to a different branch in the same area, but since Lisa skipped breakfast and left early, our departure times didn't coincide. And then, during work on that day, Lisa appeared at my workplace with a man from the detective's photos. Come on, you've got to be kidding. It wasn't the shock of encountering the affair that made me think this. It was the sheer audacity of them showing up at a branch where I might be working. Maybe we should go abroad. I'd love to relax at a resort hotel. Really? Then, let's do that. Their sickly sweet voices were unbearable. I intervened with a smile. Have you decided on your travel destination? We can tailor a plan to suit your needs. What? Lisa froze. She stared at me, her face growing increasingly rigid. I guess she only knew about the branch I initially worked at and hadn't kept up with my occasional shifts to other branches. Choosing this branch, of all places, showed a lack of thought. Thank you. My girlfriend and I were just discussing going overseas. Is that so? I'm sure you'll have a wonderful trip. Please, have a seat here. As I offered a seat at the counter, the man sat down without any suspicion, seemingly unaware of Lisa's delayed reaction. Thank you for considering our agency. My name is James. Could you tell me about your preferred destinations and budget? Well, we don't want to go too far because of work, but we're thinking of a resort destination, right? Is there something wrong? No, just whatever he said. Lisa's behavior was clearly off, but she tried her best to sound composed. choosing to play along. How about Hawaii? The plan would depend on what you're looking for. For example, I maintained a professional demeanor. The man was quite enthusiastic, discussing flights, hotel classes, and locations. Given their age group, their requests were quite lavish, and I meticulously tailored and aligned a plan to their needs, while carefully avoiding letting Lisa speak too much, focusing more on the man's opinions. Lisa seemed intimidated by my unwavering demeanor. Maintaining a facade of planning a lovely trip for a couple, the plan quickly came together, leading to an agreement. At the perfect moment, I delivered the punchline with a smile. So, all we need now is the contract. Thank you. Enjoy your wonderful affair trip. What? An affair trip, right, Lisa? How can you say it's an affair to a customer? Because I'm Lisa's husband. You could just ask her, couldn't you? Lisa turned a remarkable shade of pale. While Lisa seemed confused, the man next to her was even more clueless, floundering with saying, what? The fault lies with them, after all. Before the shock wore off, I leaned in close to the trembling Lisa and whispered, "We're getting a divorce." Draining even more color from her already pallid face, Lisa could only look at me, utterly terrified. Then, I promptly assured the bewildered pair out of the store, saying, "Please leave now." It was truly refreshing. Although my colleagues were initially puzzled, they believed my story thanks to the trust I had built up through my work, and after some sympathy, I was allowed to head home early. So, I decided to contact my lawyer and wait for Lisa's return at home. As I enjoyed a relaxed dinner at home, I heard arguing outside, followed by the doorbell. Opening the door, I found Lisa, disheveled and tear-streaked, apologizing profusely with the other man. "I'm so sorry. What we did was unforgivable." "Stop it. Just stop. It's you who needs to stop. Apologizing is the least you can do." They started arguing again at the doorstep. To avoid causing a scene, I let them in and heard them out in the living room. It seemed the man was misled by Lisa, who had apparently told him she had broken up with me because I was a man with nothing to gain except money. "Regardless, the fact remains that we had an affair. Please allow me to compensate you," the man said. Ignoring him, Lisa, half in a huff, muttered, "If you hadn't said anything, there'd be no proof. It could have been dismissed as a misunderstanding." "Hold on." I interjected and brought out copies of the evidence photos I had planned to confront her with, placing several of them in front of her. Pictures of them kissing passionately, entering and leaving hotels, embracing each other, all unmistakably incriminating. Lisa, turning as pale as she had in the afternoon, screamed and covered the photos with her body. "Why? I don't want this. No." The man kept repeating, I'm sorry. I knew about this long before you showed up today. I was prepared. I'm not as naive as to casually visit the branch where your husband works," I told her. Lisa then fell silent, her face flushed with embarrassment. I might have been harsh, but I wanted to speak my mind. As I said earlier, we're getting a divorce. It's already decided. Hearing this, Lisa burst into tears. I had never seen her so emotional, and I felt nothing but disdain for someone who cries and screams over being caught in wrongdoing. Afterward, I sent Lisa away with only the essentials and switched to communicating through the lawyer. The divorce was finalized swiftly. Lisa seemed to have planned to be with the man, but he, being decent despite the affair, rejected her. She even ludicrously inquired through the lawyer, "If we don't get divorced, do I not have to pay alimony?" The lawyer explained to her that wasn't the case. And she seemed to understand, not being particularly unintelligent. I decided to believe the man's word since he appeared sincere. And so the divorce proceedings were complete. Regarding what happened next, Lisa apparently lost her job due to the scandal, as trust is crucial in her field. She hadn't confided in her parents, who were proud of her banking career, and was now deceiving them. I hadn't shared the details with my former in-laws. I felt bad for them, but have grown so averse to anything related to Lisa that I glossed over the truth. I slightly pity any man who might get entangled with her in the future, especially since rumors suggest she's now in debt from her lavish spending on fashion, dining, and travel. I've made sure our mutual acquaintances are aware, reducing her potential support network. I hadn't found a new relationship yet, but thanks to Lisa's neglect of household duties, I've become quite adept at managing chores and am enjoying my single life. I'm even considering a solo trip. I'm now living a contented and happy life without any hardships. Hey, why are you even here at this shop? I don't think a place like this is meant for an incompetent high school graduate like you. That day, I was visiting my favorite upscale French restaurant with my work colleagues. I unexpectedly ran into Sophia, who had bullied me relentlessly at my previous company. Dressed in an expensive dress and wearing bold makeup, Sophia twisted her bright red lips and loudly berated me without any regard for the other customers. "Could you please stop bothering me now?" I said this, feeling utterly annoyed by the interruption of my enjoyable time. "Shut up. Oh, by the way, I've been appointed as the next CEO. If you suck up to me now, maybe I could do business with your company. You'd better not sour my mood, you know." Just then, a man in a fine suit appeared and Sophia's face turned pale. "My name is Jason. I'm a 28-year-old company employee. My father passed away in a traffic accident when I was still very young. He was taken from us by a car that ran a red light while he was crossing the street on his way to work. Losing our father so suddenly, our family was left in shock, unable to accept his death. I have little memory of how we managed to stabilize our lives after that. Moreover, the offender in the accident was driving without a license and insurance, adding insult to injury. Due to the offender's blatant disregard for the law, we were left with no choice but to accept the situation, as we could not expect any compensation from someone with no ability to pay. This added to the burden of my exhausted mother. Despite our dire circumstances, my mother always said we couldn't afford to wallow in sorrow. She worked multiple jobs, like cash register duty at convenience stores and supermarkets, to raise me and my two younger brothers by herself. My father had left us with a small amount of life insurance, but it was barely enough to support me and my two younger brothers. Growing up in such conditions, I was determined from a young age to ease my mother's burdens as soon as possible, deciding to work right after graduating from high school instead of pursuing further education. Deciding to work was one thing, but the actual job hunting process for a high school graduate was incredibly tough. The industries open to high school graduates were limited, with most job postings in caregiving, apparel, and the food service sector. However, the wages offered in these sectors for high school graduates were very low, which was a significant concern for me. I was desperate to find a job that would pay well enough to provide some comfort to my mother. When I heard from a career guidance counselor about a job opening at a local major construction company, I was determined to secure the position at all costs. The construction company had far more positions available for college graduates, and the openings for high school graduates seemed almost like an afterthought. But I couldn't afford to let this opportunity pass, so I worked closely with the career guidance counselor on my resume, studying for the entrance exam and preparing for interviews. I managed to pass the document screening and found myself in an interview alongside numerous college students. But I couldn't afford to be intimidated. In the interview room, I was faced with what appeared to be the company's CEO, a gentle-looking man, and 3 other executives or HR personnel. I looked straight ahead and started my self-introduction. Then, one of the executives, Scott, asked me a challenging question with a smirk. "It seems you've worked hard in your studies at high school." "Yes." But wouldn't there have been other industries more suited to a high school graduate? I'll be honest. The work here is quite demanding and requires further study. Why did you choose our company? I clenched my back teeth and, looking straight at the smirking executive, I said, I was raised in a single-parent household. I wanted to work for a prestigious company like yours to learn about society from the seniors here and grow into a responsible adult, all for the sake of my mother who raised me. Hearing my strong resolve, Mr. Williams, the company's CEO, who had been quietly listening until then, spoke up gently to reprimand the harsh executive. Scott, it's not nice to pick on the young ones. But Williams, he's just a high school graduate. Enough of that. You're Jason, right? Thank you for your impressive answer. Yes. The CEO then smiled at me. Our company values interpersonal relationships the most. We hope young talents like you can learn and grow into respectable adults here. With those encouraging words, he gave me a push forward. Filled with hope from those words, I left the interview room. When the job offer arrived at home later, it was a beautiful memory to celebrate with tears of joy alongside my mother and siblings. There were many new hires that year, so Williams probably doesn't remember me, but I will always be grateful for his warm support at that moment. I was overjoyed to be working under him. 7 years later, having built my career, I've made steady progress as a high school graduate. Since joining the company, I was assigned to the construction management department, spending my days in rigorous training, both on-site and studying for certifications. There were moments when the intensity almost broke me, but I managed to grin and bear it. Thanks to my incredibly supportive colleagues and senior employees who taught me a great deal about the job. Last year, I even experienced supervising a major building construction project, intending to continue in the technical field. Surprisingly, I was exceptionally promoted for the sales department, which is also a highlight of the company I had long hoped to join. My department colleagues and seniors were surprised by this unusual move, cheering, "It's a big promotion." I, too, approached the sales department door with high hopes. The sales department is a gathering of elite college graduates, handling negotiations for large contracts that could significantly impact the company's fortunes. From day one in the new department, the pace was dizzying, but my colleagues were all kind and took the time to teach me the ropes, allowing me to complete on-the-job training OJT within a few months and start managing my accounts. I got used to making courtesy calls to clients and even managed to secure a few small deals, diligently working my way up. However, there was one person who persistently saw me as a thorn in her side. A senior employee named Sophia. Sophia, an elite with a degree in architecture from Harvard, has been on a fast track to success since joining the company. Her sales performance is impressive, and she's often mentioned as a future executive or CEO. I had thought her character would be as outstanding as her achievements, but I was sorely mistaken. From the first day I greeted her, Sophia openly mocked my educational background. "I'm Jason, newly assigned to the sales department. I look forward to working with you." "You must be joking. You're a high school graduate, right?" Yes." "Ugh, the worst. Why would a lowly educated high school grad be assigned to the sales department? That's a bit harsh. This is the face of the company. A low-educated person like you doesn't belong here. It's the worst having to work with you. What are you doing here so confidently? You should have told HR that you were not capable enough for a sales position." I was taken aback by her outright disdain and insults about my education from our first meeting. Since then, Sophia started dumping her work on me as if I were her personal assistant or slave. One day before a meeting, "Hey, high school boy, copy these meeting documents and take them to the conference room." "But that's not my job." "What? You dare defy me, a high school grad?" "Fine, I'll do it." And another time, just before the end of the workday, Hey, I don't have time to prepare tomorrow's meeting materials, so you do it tonight. Tomorrow's meeting materials, but that's not my task. Just do it. Bring them first thing tomorrow morning. You know what will happen if you don't, right? Understood. Like this, I was swamped with her tasks on top of my own, leading to endless overtime and reaching my limit. Yet, I was starting to find fulfillment in my sales role, building trust with clients. Then, an incident occurred. One day, as usual, Sophia abruptly stopped me and handed me some work. Here, this is your job, so take care of it. What? Please hold on. I was astonished when I saw the documents, my eyes wide with surprise. They were for a crucial negotiation set for that afternoon, vital for the company. What's the matter? It's your responsibility, so make sure you do it well. Though, being a useless high school grad, preparing at this point might be futile. I doubt it'll go well, but do your best. Sophia sneered at my panic and walked away. In a rush, I skimmed through the documents and prepared what I could, heading to the negotiation venue. Of course, the outcome was disastrous. It was a negotiation for a large shopping facility construction project, and I was embarrassingly unprepared. With no finalized concept or visual designs, I was reprimanded on the spot. Understandably, the client was furious, saying, "I've never been so insulted like this," leading to a significant complaint. At that moment, all I wanted to scream was, how was I supposed to handle this with just a few hours' notice? Later, back at the company, I was called in by Executive Kevin and reprimanded for the mishap. Why did this happen? Didn't you realize how important this negotiation was? I was assigned to this negotiation task just this morning. I had no time to prepare. Shut up. No excuses. But it's true. It's hard to believe Sophia would do something like that. Blaming others like this is disgraceful. I tried to tell the truth, but the executives, being close to Sophia, wouldn't listen to me, leaving me in despair. Consequently, I was dismissed for causing significant damage to the company. In other words, I was fired. On my last day, as I was clearing my desk, Sophia looked at me with a smirk. "I feel refreshed now that an incompetent like you is gone." Her final taunt and laughter as I left were etched in my mind. That's how I ended up leaving the company I had worked at for 8 years. 5 years later, I found myself in a high-end French restaurant for work. This famous restaurant, located in a prime location on 5th Avenue, served dishes prepared by a skilled chef using the finest seasonal ingredients. The upscale restaurant has a bar attached to it and one private room for VIPs in the back. I was sitting at a table with a few colleagues, enjoying delicious wine and food while having a lively conversation. Then, from the entrance, I heard a voice saying, "I had a reservation today under Sophia." The person guided by the staff was the very last person I wanted to see again, Sophia. Upon noticing me, Sophia's face turned sour. "Hey, why are you even in this place?" "It's been a while, Sophia. I don't think a place like this is for incompetent high school graduates like you. You haven't changed a bit, even after all this time." Dressed in an elegant dress and bold makeup, Sophia, with her bright red lips twisted, loudly confronted me without regard for other customers. The waiter, flustered by the tense atmosphere, tried to guide Sophia to her seat, saying, "Excuse me, your seat is in the back," but she ignored him and continued, "What are you even doing now, after being fired?" "I'm here with work colleagues today." "Oh, really? I wonder what kind of bottom-tier company took you in. Are you trying to show off by coming to a place like this? Can you please stop bothering me?" I said, utterly annoyed by the disruption of an enjoyable moment. "I'm not bothering you. It's just the worst having a high school grad like you in the same space. Just leave." "That's ridiculous. Shut up. I've been appointed as the next CEO. Maybe if you suck up to me now, I could consider doing business with your company. Wouldn't want to upset me, right? I'm not interested in that. Despite my repeated rejections, Sophia kept pestering me. Don't ignore me, you incompetent high school grad. Are you even listening to me? As Sophia stood beside me, looking down from her lofty position with a smirk, I was utterly disgusted. Despite the delicious dishes laid out on the table, Sophia's loud complaints soured the atmosphere. I decided to ignore her and continue my meal, deeming her words unworthy of a response. Don't mess with me. Your presence is making me sick. Just leave. As Sophia raised her voice in anger from being ignored, CEO Williams from my former company appeared from the back. Mr. Williams. I thought I recognized Sophia's voice, but what on earth is this commotion? Well, it's just that. Come on, you're disturbing the other guests. Oh, isn't that Jason? Good to see you. Greeted by him, I responded in kind. Likewise, it's good to see you. It's quite a coincidence to meet here. Indeed. Thank you so much for reaching out about the new project. As we engaged in a friendly chat, Sophia, standing beside me, staggered back in shock, completely dumbfounded. Mr. Williams, what's this all about? What do you want to know? This guy was fired from our company for being incompetent. Why are you, Mr. Williams? Hey, Sophia, watch your mouth. Jason is the sales division head at the major general contractor, K Construction, and also an executive officer. K Construction. Hearing the name and position at the company I work for from Mr. Williams, Sophia turned pale and started trembling. After being fired, I was recruited by K Construction due to my track record and experience from my previous job. Although my time at my previous job ended prematurely, I was assigned to the sales department at K Construction, where I have continued to achieve the top sales performance nationwide since joining and have climbed up to an executive position. I had met Mr. Williams at a dinner before and have been in good terms with him since. The first time we met, I had told him about working at his company and being fired 5 years ago. To my surprise, he had no recollection of firing me or any memory of such an incident. He mentioned he had no recollection of ever dismissing an employee for misconduct. Without digging into Sophia's past, I avoided the topic and shared how the words he once said about valuing human relationships within the company still empower me today, which pleased him greatly. I credit my ascent to an executive role to his teachings. I participated in various dinners to communicate with a wide range of people, valuing my interactions with individuals both inside and outside the company. By doing so, my sales performance significantly improved, leading to achievements that culminated in my appointment as an executive. That's ridiculous. Impossible. How could such an incompetent high school graduate become an executive at K Construction? Facing Sophia, who was muttering in disbelief and turning pale, I spoke up. Sophia, you're still discriminating against people based on their educational background, I see. Of course, that's obvious. People without a degree are just incompetent. You're still saying that. You might want to reconsider that viewpoint. Judging people solely by their education and not seeing their true worth is a flaw for a leader. Shut up. Why should I be lectured by someone like you? Can you say such a thing? What do you mean? You haven't forgotten about tomorrow's negotiation with our company, have you? What, that's... If someone who could potentially be a business partner behaves like this, we can trust them enough to work together. It seems best to cancel our meeting tomorrow. No, wait, please wait. I decided to cancel the meeting the next day, appalled by Sophia's persistent focus on educational background without seeing the true essence of people and her unchanged condescending attitude. Jason, what's going on here? Mr. Williams, I'm sorry. I think it's time I tell you everything. Surprised by the exchange between Sophia and me, I shared with him the harassment I had endured from Sophia while working at his company. At that time, Sophia hid my work, and I couldn't do anything about it. What a terrible thing to happen, but why didn't you tell me at the time? I did inform the executives, but they didn't take me seriously. I thought I'd let it go and forget about it. But seeing Sophia's condescending attitude as soon as we met again made me lose my patience. I see. I had no idea, and I deeply apologize. After hearing my story, he apologized, but Sophia clung to him, desperately trying to make me out to be the villain. Mr. Williams, it's not true. It's all his fault. Don't be fooled. Sophia, be quiet. He sternly reprimanded Sophia with a fearsome glare. The next CEO thing is now back to square one. With that, he walked away, leaving Sophia collapsed on the floor. After a while, Sophia staggered out of the restaurant, escorted by a staff member. I apologized to the chef and my colleagues for the disturbance and reset the atmosphere to enjoy the delicious food and drinks. Later, I heard from Mr. Williams that an internal investigation was conducted regarding Sophia. Apparently, there were quite a few employees who had experienced similar harassment from Sophia, some of whom had kept detailed records. Various misdeeds such as power harassment, human rights violations, and labor management violations were brought to light, and like me back then, Sophia was severely reprimanded in the executive board's disciplinary committee and was dismissed on the spot. Despite her cries of innocence until the very end, overwhelmed by the disdainful glances from many employees, she left the company as if fleeing. Jason, I'm truly sorry about this incident. We've purged the executives who were complicit in Sophia's power harassment and are planning to start over and improve the company's environment. It's not about getting an apology from you, but I appreciate that you believed my story and even went as far as to conduct an internal investigation. I haven't forgotten the kindness I received from you. I would be delighted if we could work together again someday. Although this incident resulted in a cancellation of our current project, I expressed my sincere hope to collaborate on significant projects with his company under its new management, and he was receptive to the idea. As an executive, I am committed to continuing to contribute to my company's success and to strive every day to become a fully fledged professional.